2014 holiday season is here, and that means it's time for us to create another video on cool gift ideas for the Saltwater Aquarium Coral Reef Keeper. My name's Russ Kickle, and stick around for another episode of American Reef. So the idea behind these gift idea videos is really simple. You know, as coral reef keeping hobbyists, right, around the holiday season, we all would like some really cool coral reef keeping kind of gifts, right? But our better halves, wives, loved ones, you know, that sort of thing, they have no clue what to get us and where to get it from. So for me, I wanted to solve that problem by saying, listen, here's a link, honey. You can buy me anything in the video that's mentioned, and you can buy it from any of the suppliers that are mentioned there. That way, again, we had a good list of gifts, and also it was, again, good suppliers who would make sure they could deliver the products on time, because, you know, again, I've gotten burned in the past with online retailers. You know, and the idea of behind the gifts would be to make them very functional, very practical, and at the same time keeping it within kind of that, you know, gift-giving range, meaning anywhere between like $5 and say $200-ish kind of dollars, right? Because it depends on budgets, relationships, that sort of thing, as far as the size and quantity. So for me anyway, I take the video, give it to my better half, and I have her share it with the rest of the family members, and ultimately it's the perfect gift idea for me, and I'm sure it will be for you as well. You know, as far as a good example, I like to add one of the things that I'm adding to my list, hint, hint, is the Tunzi 6040, right? Basically, this is one of the new turbelly pirate heads that Tunzi released this year, and what makes this product unique, for example, is this innovative design. Right? When you look at it, we're used to having pirate heads that kind of shoot straight out. Well, what this thing does is it draws air in here, and then from there, basically shoots it out in a wide, dispersed pattern. You know, as far as coming out of the top. And what's really cool about this thing is the fact that, given this design, it can go not only in big tanks, but it can go in small tanks, nano tanks, and that's really what it's designed for. But when you look at it in a big tank, for example, you can put it behind the rock work. You can put it in just various locations that you might not be able to get a normal pirate head. And then in a nano tank, obviously, again, it's small enough and it's compact enough that it allows to place that. Now, for me, I'm a fan of the 6040. I know Mike's a fan of the 6020, but I like the 6040 because it also has this controller. And this controller, when you look at it, it allows you to get those kind of wavy patterns that we all kind of want to get in our tanks. In a little nano tank, for example, they do this not by only controlling kind of frequency and the pulse and stuff like that, but it also gives you kind of feed timers and things of that nature that you normally don't find in something this size. So to me, again, it provides ton of value, and you know, ultimately in my case, for example, I would like to have roughly 2 or 3 of these, hint, because you can also kind of chain them up, meaning you can put up to, I believe, 3 of them together, and again, they're just a great addition to basically any tank. So when you look at kind of gift ideas, that's the kind of you know, category, we'll call it, that I was trying to kind of shoot for, meaning something that everybody can use. It doesn't matter the size of tank, whether it's a nano tank, for example, or a large tank, but something that A, would provide value, and then B, was cost effective. I believe the cost on these, for example, I believe I've seen holiday sales where they're roughly around 120-ish, you know, around that mark, right? And the 6020, for example, I know is less than $50. So again, you know, it's in that upper scale, but still very affordable and something reasonably you can ask for your better half or whatever for a holiday gift guide. And you know, again, as far as the kind of products, those are the kind of products or the kind of characteristics of products that we're going to find in these videos. Now, in our particular case, what happened is we caught up with Mike Paletta, who just returned from MACNA, which is kind of like the mecca of trying to find, you know, great gift ideas, right, on that MACNA floor. So with that being said, let's go see Mike and let's see what other kind of ideas that he has to throw out at us.
Today I just returned from MACNA and saw a ton of really cool and new products. And basically, since it's getting close to Christmas and everyone always wonders what to get Dad, because Mom really isn't in the hobby, what to get Dad for Christmas, there's a lot of new neat stuff out there that would definitely make his Christmas a happy one.
So hold it. This is Christmas list part 2 because we did one last year, right?
We did one last year. This is all pretty much new stuff for this year. And a lot of neat and fun things have come out in it takes a year. And this MACNA to me was the best one I've ever been to. More vendors than there were at the first MACNA, more vendors than there were attendees at the first MACNA. So it was a very interesting and informative meeting. I thought it was one of the best ones I've ever been to. Hopefully next year's will live up to it, but they'll be hard pressed in Washington to match the level of information and the number of vendors that they had at this year's MACNA.
Very good. Let's take a commercial break and we'll be right back. So, hold it. I got a question for you.
Yes.
You said this was by far the best MACNA.
Yes.
Right? Main reason? Because you said there was a lot of people, but... There
were a lot of people. There was a lot of information shared about little nuanced things. There was a lot of new technologies discussed. And it's also great for me because I get to see everybody because I've been doing this for 30 years and getting it's like seeing my old friends and old family.
Right.
Because after 30 years, there's a lot of people that have left the hobby, unfortunately. But those that have been in it a long time, like Julian and Sanjay, who I only get to see 2 or 3 times a year, it's nice to catch up and see what's going on and how things are going in their lives because we've known each other since basically we were kids. So it's great from that standpoint.
Okay, cool. I was going to say, it wasn't great because you gave a speech there, right? Or a talk there, right?
No, I enjoyed it. I hadn't given a talk in front of a large audience for a few years. I sort of took a little time off, and it was nice to get to do that again. And it's now on Bulk Reef Supply's website where you can look at the talk and where I basically go over the history of reef keeping. Only up until 2007 because I had to do a shorter than my normal talk. So I tried to squeeze in roughly 30 years into 35 minutes. And so we ended at 2007 because that's quote-unquote when the modern era of reef keeping came into being. So it's on Bulk Reef Supply. If you want to see what we went through in the early years of the hobby, I hopefully gave a fun and enjoyable presentation, not like history class you remember from high school where somebody just drones on. I try to make it fun and informative, which I don't know if I did or not, but you can check it out and see if you agree.
Very good. So either it's YouTube's Bulk Reef Supply channel or on their webpage, right?
Correct.
Okay, so you got some gifts, so to speak, some Christmas gift ideas.
There's a lot of things to make the hobby easier, and as we've discussed in a lot of the videos, anything that makes your life easier as a hobbyist makes you typically more successful because you're more likely to do things that are easier to do.
Right.
Granted, people love to have their hands in the tank and everything, but you also like to do it where it's simple, where you're not reaching back around stuff to remove things to try to make things easier.
Right.
So we will start off with the couple of the simplest, easiest things that I came across. One of which is, this is a water sensor. It comes in a pack of 3, and it actually comes from Walmart. You can probably buy them in other places, but I found these online. They were 3 for 27 bucks, and they have probably saved me 1,000 gallons of water on the floor so far. Because anytime any kind of water hits, these 2 circuits connect, and suddenly you get an ear-piercing scream. And as a result, I have had where I've moved things and bumped things and didn't realize a hose was missing and shooting water partially into the tank to refill and partially onto the bottom of the tank.
Right.
This let me know this when I was sleeping. It sounds like a fire alarm. And for 27 bucks, $9 a piece, I have them in 3 different spots. So anywhere where there's water that pops up into the tank or outside,
there you go. There you go. Perfect.
And obviously, I had a wet hand.
Yeah. How do you
turn it off pretty easily?
That's what I was gonna say. How do you shut it off after that baby's alarm?
You have to dry it, and obviously Lucy does not like that sound. And your dog,
she's gonna.
Your dog will come and wake you up.
Very good.
There we go. Now the next simple thing
Hold on, you got those Walmart?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
You know, I had to order them online, but they direct shipped them to the Walmart, and I just went and picked them up. They don't carry them in stock. I was looking for water sensors, and they were the cheapest and easiest to use, and they've worked now for the past 9 months, so they've been good.
Okay, Walmart water sensors online, under 30 bucks, home run.
That's it. I mean, for 30 bucks, you can't buy too much in the hobby.
Right,
Although a couple things that you can buy. They're not in here now, but this is actually a feeding chimney. That is, you put the food in the top, the food slowly goes down to the bottom. It's clear. The fish learn fairly quickly that this is an easy way to get their food, as does Lucy here. So they will wait at the bottom for it. There's only one problem with this. It's a really great device, so you don't have all your food blowing around your tank and rotting. The fish just wait to pick it off bit by bit because it tends to drop fairly slowly. The fish are fairly smart. They realize pretty soon that the food comes in here. Skinny fish like wrasses will dive up here.
Oh, yes.
And I've lost a couple of them going up here.
Hold on, what do you mean? You mean they go up and jump out?
They go up into the tube and get stuck.
Okay.
And they suffocate.
Yeah, sure.
So what you need to do is, after you're done feeding, you need to take this out.
Okay.
So you can't leave this sitting in your tank. Another possibility, and one of the things I'm actually playing with right now, why this isn't here, I glued a piece of plastic tubing on the bottom so the fish can't fit up here. The food can still go down because it cuts this in half. And what I would probably put is a T across the bottom, and so I'll get even better results of the fish not being able to swim up here. So this is a really nice device for keeping excess and wasted food going there.
Okay, now hold it. That was CPR feeding chimney?
CPR's smart feeder.
Okay, smart feeder. Got it.
CPR smart feeder.
What's up next,
now,
sir?
Also in terms of food, we talked about this, but now that I've been using it for probably about 6 months, I'm really impressed by this red enhancing food from New Life Spectrum, in that I keep a lot of fairy wrasses, a lot of other guys keep fairy wrasses. One of the things we've all noticed is over time they tend to fade. Now that I've been feeding them this daily, I haven't gotten the fading that I was getting previously.
Right.
So this is something, obviously something else to stuff your dad's stocking with because it's fairly cheap. Most places have it, and it's something that works. So if your dad is a wrasse aficionado like I am, this is something that he should get, because otherwise the wrasses tend to fade. And
I think actually Premium Aquatics is the one that has that at least more frequently, right?
Yeah.
Because I know I looked at several online retailers and...
No one has it listed.
Right.
But if you call them and ask their customer service people, they generally have it. They just haven't put it online or in their catalogs yet. Right. It is still relatively new.
Right. Okay.
Now we're going to go from simplistic to the most exotic thing.
Oh, I love this thing.
Obviously, when we were in Denver, they have open marijuana laws, so anyone that saw this thought this was a bomb.
Right.
But the reality is, not that I would know what that is.
Oh, yeah.
But what this actually is a hand-blown glass overflow. It's from MAME Design in Japan, and no one in the U.S. carries this as of right now. I had to order this from a guy named Sunichi, and it took us 2 weeks to get the language cleared up, because the second question they ask when you're filling out the form is they want you to put out your name phonetically in Japanese. So I had to go onto Google, translate my name from English into Japanese and put it in there. But this isn't clear when you're trying to fill this out. They kept sending it back that the form was incomplete. So what you can see here is a really cool design, and it takes up very little space. The only amount of this overflow that will be in your tank is from what's inside my hand. So in a rimless tank or in a nano tank, this isn't going to be the big space hog that you've typically seen with overflows. Now what happens is, the water flows over here. You can adjust this up or down to get the water level where you want it to. Flows down through the overflow, and then shoots out the tube here into your tank. Now, what's nice about this, or interesting about this, is here is your return. You snap a hose onto here, run it off a power head. You have to be able to adjust from a pump, and you want to be able to adjust the pump. And you can see here that the return is connected to the overflow. So what happens is when the water's pumping in, it sucks any air bubbles out of here. So even if you shut the power off, it'll draw the air out and it'll start to siphon all over again.
It's just an awesome design.
I've played with this for a couple weeks in a 10-gallon tank because I didn't trust it not to overflow. Plus, I've been traveling a lot for the past couple weeks, and rule number one is don't add anything new to your tank when you're leaving, because you will come home to a catastrophe. So now I'm home basically until Christmas. So next week, this is going on my nano tank, which we'll talk about later on. But this is, to me, one of the coolest things I've had. It's around $140, which, needless to say, is not for the weak of heart.
Right.
For an Overflow. And it was another $25 in freight.
Right.
Which was funny, because I ordered this from Japan on a Thursday, and I had it here on Monday. I ordered some other things from California on Friday. They didn't get here until a week later.
Yeah.
So, obviously, I paid more for the shipping, but it got here. Once again, this is manufactured by MAME Overflow. It's a really, if you have a nano tank or rimless tank and you don't want something really nasty, a big Overflow box, this is the ticket.
Okay, so here's the question, the obvious question. It's glass.
It's glass.
Right.
Yes.
How fragile do you think that is? Like, you know, because you'll have hoses on there, so it'll be holding weight, right? And there'll be some stress, you know, on it.
It's glass. The glass is relatively thick as glass goes, but obviously you don't want to drop this. You don't want it to be banging around in your tank. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wedge a piece of styrofoam between it and the glass. Okay. So if it does vibrate at all, it's not going to be glass on glass, because I know who will lose that battle, and it will probably be this.
Right.
So that is one of the things I'm going to look at with this.
And again, so we're looking at it. It's a product you're testing, not necessarily proven yet, but man, if that thing works out, that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen videos of it, and it looks like it works really, really well.
Right.
The questions are going to be, I'm going to cover it up a little bit with black so that it doesn't get a lot of algae in it, because I don't want to clean it a whole lot. Right. But I'll still be able to observe it and just see how well it works. Obviously, this is not for a huge tank, because you can see how small this tube is. It's not meant to be running 1,000 gallons an hour. Right. Their recommendation is like from 50 to 150 gallons per hour, which on a 25-gallon nano tank is, you know, 8 times per hour turning over the tank. That's more than enough flow. Right. So I think this was one of the cooler things I've come across. And I can't wait to try it. I can't wait to show you guys how it works on the nano tank.
Yeah, me too.
Because we're going to look at the nano tank later on, or in another video, actually. Right. And you'll see that I didn't live up to my word.
I know we probably told the audience before, but what is your dog's name?
This is Lucy. Actually, next week is her 4th birthday. She's a Havanese, and she's somewhat unique because she's a black Havanese. Most Havanese are tan or beige. And she's the nicest dog I've ever had. She misses me when I'm gone. She basically lays by the door. And she's not a lap dog per se, but she likes to be within 6 feet of me all the time. Right. So she likes to be around people. And anyone that comes in the door, you're her new best friend for about 10 minutes, and then she won't be bothered with you again. So she's great that way. She doesn't jump. She's hypoallergenic. She doesn't shed. And she's also very intelligent. Yeah.
I mean, like, as in, hey, Russ is coming over, and she knows to go to a window and wait for 10 minutes.
Yeah, actually, when I said Russ was coming over to shoot these today, she sat by the window waiting for Russ to pull up. So she does that with my parents, too. So she's the best dog I've ever had. And I've had dogs most of my life.
And that's Lucy.
This is Lucy.
Okay, transition into fish stuff.
Now, everybody for the nano tank, we talked about the new Overflow. There's also the new Tunze power heads, which are unique in that, unlike most power heads, just shoot out of a nozzle. This has a wide spread, and it shoots over the top. So you can put this behind the rocks, hide it, or put it below the rocks and blow all the detritus out from underneath and get it to constantly be cleaning the tank. And you do it with a very small footprint, and it basically can be hidden. Because the Overflow isn't coming out of a spot, you don't have this big contraption sitting in the middle of the tank. You can have it behind the rock and the Overflow portion underneath the rock, or above the rock, or beside the rock. However, you can put it in any orientation that you want, and in so doing, you're going to get a ton of flow. And this really does, for how small it is, produce an incredible amount of flow in the tank. In a really small tank, you probably want something even a little smaller than this, and they have some smaller Tunzes than this, but this is perfect for 25 to a 50-gallon tank for getting really good current within that tank.
Yeah, and I think they have a bigger one as well. I know this one is the smaller one, so it'll be interesting in that nano that you do not have packed tight at all with fish or anything.
Yeah, there's lots of fish. Corals are coming next. Now, the next thing which we've talked about before is the Robo Snail, and why it's better now is he's improved the magnet on it, so it can work even up to 1/2 inch glass with a lot more success. And he's tweaked the software a little bit more, so there aren't some of the glitches that I had early on. So this is something, Christmas is always about getting people stuff that they aren't going to buy for themselves. This is something that most people wouldn't buy for themselves, but for dad who's serious about the hobby, this is a really nice gift in that it keeps the glass clean.
Right.
And of all the things I do, that's probably my least favorite thing. 'Cause I have to do it every other day, every third day, and it really doesn't improve the quality of the tank. It's not like testing or doing something like that. The only thing it does is improve my ability to observe the tank and not have to spend a lot of time doing things I don't like to do.
Right.
So as I said, things that make your life easier are one of the things I really like about this hobby. And as more and more things like this come out, it does make your life the hobby easier.
Okay, so who makes the Robos now?
Aquagenesis International.
Say that 22 times.
Yep.
Right? Okay.
My friend Milan, he makes this. This is something I really like on my tanks in that it cuts down on the amount of unnecessary work or
Right, exactly.
Work.
What's the rough cost?
It's around
price range.
$150 to $200,
okay.
I believe.
Okay.
So it's not out of the range of buying something
Right,
for
right,
dad.
right. For dad.
Yeah.
No, dad deserves better than fun.
Yeah, I know. Well, now in terms of making your life easier, one of the things that a lot of people are into a hobby are taking pictures of their corals. And the best pictures of the corals that I've ever seen are always top down.
Yes.
Because obviously they're growing up toward the light, that's where the color is. And this vast top down, for lack of a better term, tube allows you to insert the camera lens into here, put this fairly deep into the water so you can get really close to the corals. So for macro shots or other shots, it takes away the water moving from the top and you can get exceptionally good quality of pictures because it has really nice thick acrylic on the bottom. So it's not going to be distorted, it's going to be nice and clear. This is something I really like for taking photographs. I still haven't mastered my white balance, but that gets me to two things that I learned at MACNA in terms of balancing white. There was a talk on biofluorescence and bioluminescence that talked about how to take some of the blue coloration out.
Right.
And they talked about these Tiffin filters. If your dad is a photography nut that likes to take pictures of his corals, there's colors 8 and 12 yellow that take the blue color out. They're like $15 a piece. So that's something that if your dad does this is something that he probably doesn't even know about.
Right.
And I just learned about at MACNA from Sanjay and from the bioluminescence guy, and it really helps taking the blue coloration out. And if you want to see just the bioluminescence of the corals, this is one of the ways to do it. You excite the corals with a blue LED light, you put this filter on, and you'll see the colors without the blue light in them, and you can really see some amazing shots.
So now, have you tried this with remember the orange, for example, that you showed last year?
It's similar to what you get with the orange glasses.
Okay.
So in the same vein, one of the things I'm playing with and have been playing with is adjusting the white balance.
Right.
So one of the things they suggest you get is a pure white card.
Right.
A lot of people use coffee filters or things like that. But what's interesting, I didn't realize how many different colors of white there are.
Right.
And none of them are like absolute white. This card is an absolute white. It costs $8. And when you want to manually adjust your white balance so you can get the blues and have the color look good under LED lights or under our typically very high blue concentrated lights,
right.
This is one of the tickets for doing that. So it makes life much easier if you white balance, but you get them a nice simple white balance card.
Sure, and to your point, $10, whatever, it's a good gift.
It's something simple that, again, your dad probably won't buy for himself.
Right.
But it's something small that you can get him just to make his life a little bit easier.
Sure. And now, previous to this, you showed those filters. How much did they cost?
They were $12 to $20.
Okay, again. So perfect. So
yeah.
20-ish bucks, under 25.
The only thing you have to check on is each camera lens has a different millimeter size. So they run from 52 millimeters, which is a Nikon, up to like 66 millimeters, which is a Canon.
Right.
Each one has different sizes. So just make sure you get the right lens to match the camera. So there's a lot of places online or camera store will help you with that. But everybody knows about the Tiffin lenses. I didn't, but everyone that's really into photography knows about the Tiffin lenses.
So like Sanjay, for example, he's got that.
Sanjay has the whole, they have every color there is. So you can change the colors without doing Photoshop or anything else.
Very good.
You can really bring the colors out on stuff.
Okay, what's up next?
Well, we did photography. So along with photography is lighting. And fortunately this year, as we've discussed, I've converted all of my tanks, except for my soft coral tank, over to LED lights.
Right.
And the latest that I've been doing with has been the Kessels, which I even now have converted my nano tank over to a Kessel because whenever I was moving corals from the frag tank into the nano tank and had the radiant on it, the radiant was actually too bright for a lot of them on Tipperas. And as a result, they were bleaching within 2 or 3 days.
Right.
So I've, just for sake of consistency, I've now gone to Kessel's on the frag and the nano tank.
Yeah, again, to clarify for everybody, you've got the Kessel's on that frag tank.
Right, I converted the Kessel's on the frag tank about 4 or 5 months ago. I've had a great deal of success with that. So I want to have that same kind of success in the other tank. Not that I wouldn't have with the Radions. The problem was I'm moving stuff back and forth all the time, and a lot of the corals did not like the differences in the lighting, and as a result, they bleached out.
And I was going to say, to that point, basically, I asked you was, even if you shut it down lower, right, you still...
I brought it down for whatever reason. I was still getting bleaching on, and I was taking frags out of the Radion tank and put them in there, and they were still bleaching.
Right.
So I don't know, just because it's simply such a shallow tank, because it's much shallower than the big tank, and those lights are so concentrated and focused. The thing I thought about potentially doing is shifting over to the wide angle lens versus the focus lens. That may have helped me out, but I got lazy, and instead I got the Kessel's.
Sure.
And one of the other reasons I got the Kessel's is the new Kessel controller, which is fairly simple, and it has a acclimation phase just like the Radions do. So with this, I've acclimated and gotten the corals where I can move them from tank to tank without having the stress that I did previously.
Now, does that controller work with the previous lights that you have, or do they have a wireless version?
They don't have a wireless version. You have to plug this in controller to lights. You plug it into the one main light that controls the other ones, and then they're all basically on the same.
Okay, so then it is retroactive, so to speak, right? So again,
so if you have old Kessel's, you can still use this.
Perfect.
As far as I know.
Well, we'll find out. That'll be another. Okey-doke, sir. What's up next?
Now, in terms of making life easier, one of the things we're always worried about, particularly with the expense of fish and corals, is acclimation. And CPR has come up with this really cool design acclimation system where basically it's a big plastic box. It has a little tube on the bottom with a one-way valve. You can adjust it. You put it in, it floats at the top with a little bit of the water from the bag in it, floats at the top, and then very gradually it fills up with tank water up until the level that you want. And then it stops. And as a result, you can let the fish acclimate for a couple of hours, or the coral acclimate for a couple of hours. Then once it's calm, you can take it out and you can put it in the tank. Or in my case, when I'm acclimating fish into my tanks, I want them to be in the tank for a while. So it even comes with a lid. I put the lid on top of the box. There's a little tiny pump. When I say little tiny pump, it's about the size of a silver dollar.
Yep.
You can attach that up to the bottom. You take the valve off, put that on the bottom. It'll constantly shoot water through here. The water will go out through the sides. And as a result, you can keep the fish in there for a few days. 1, to get used to your tank. 2, to get used to eating. And 3, and most importantly, to get the fish time to get acclimated to him, so that whenever you release it into the tank, it's not killed immediately.
Right.
So this is a really nice little acclimation chamber. It's like 39 bucks, I believe. And CPR makes it. It's the first aid. But what else is nice about this, in addition to being an acclimation chamber, if you want to make this into a brine shrimp hatchery, you can do that as well. So if
because that little pump goes the opposite direction, and you got the circulation.
Yep, and you got the circulation going within the tank. The eggs stay there. Then you shut it off. The eggs settle down at the bottom in the V. You put a light at the top, siphon out the brine shrimp right into the tank. Everybody's happy. So this is a really nice design that they came up with.
And just as an FYI, I think I've got a product showcase video on there on that one. And I have it shown it in kind of like acclimating fish mode, right? So you can kind of see that pump you were talking about and things of that nature.
Yeah, and with the expensive corals and fish, you don't want to lose them because you poorly acclimated them.
Right.
So this makes life and acclimation much easier.
Right. And you're going to acclimate whether you have a quarantine tank or not, because I've been getting emails on that, right? Meaning, hey, you know, acclimation-wise, they're talking about not using a quarantine, and it's kind of like, no, you acclimate no matter where you're doing, right? For fish especially.
We're gonna talk about my quarantine tank again downstairs, because I've gotten a lot of questions about it, because people are unsure how I have a quarantine tank attached up to the main tank. and I'll show you a couple new fish and what I've done with them to show how easy it is to acclimate properly or to quarantine properly with your frag tank and then to stick them into your main tank.
Yep. Very good. That will be on another video.
Now, in terms of the coolest, newest stuff, other than the bong or the main overflow, this is the hottest thing going. These are the max spec Gyres water pumps.
That looks like a light to me.
Well, it is so unconventional compared with what we're typically used to in water movement. We're either used to an external pump on a closed loop, pushing a ton of water around, or we have a power head shooting the power out of a jet in one spot. This uses sort of, for lack of a better term, the momentum of water moving within a cycle. So what happens with this is that the water is flowing along these fins, and it's drawn up from the bottom and shot across the top. It then moves across the top of the tank, flows down along the bottom, and it comes back along the bottom. So it just creates this cycle, or a gyre for a better term, and it really moves a ton of water within the tank. On my 300-gallon tank, I'm running one of these, and I'm not even running it at full speed, and the amount of water movement it's doing. I'm going to add a second one on there, and actually I'm considering even adding a third, not because I'm not getting enough flow from them. What I want to do is have one on one side blowing up, one on the other side blowing down, to make the gyre be even stronger to move any detritus. Then I want to put a third one along the back wall to blow any detritus that settles along the back. So I want to get as much detritus out of there as easily as I can just by doing this rather than doing the water changes that I'm currently doing.
Right. So why does that box say Clave LED system?
Oh, because this is what they shipped it in. They don't have, I am doing the beta testing of it.
Ah, there we go.
So this is why they shipped it. I didn't even look at the box because I can't
You're all
read.
excited.
Yeah, but when I learn how to read, I will realize that this isn't the actual box for it. This is what they shipped them in because they do not have production models. They're coming out in the middle of October, middle to end of October.
Okay.
So as a result, they don't have production per se. But this is what it looks like. This is actually the second generation. There's now a third generation. And this attaches into all the electronics go here. You can see it's a fairly small wire.
Right.
These are adjustable. They've made the magnets much stronger than they were initially because this puts out so much water that over time it pushes itself one way or the other unless it's absolutely perfectly aligned.
Sure. Yeah,
So,
that makes sense.
I mean, if you had it a ½ inch off, it would tend to move up like this over time, which is not what you wanted. Right. So they now have much stronger magnets to attach it to the outside glass, and it holds much better on my tank.
And now your tank is a 300. Do you remember the thickness of the glass?
6 feet, ½ inch thick glass.
Okay, there you go. So
this is what the unit looks like. These pull off and can be cleaned because this really draws a lot of stuff in.
Right.
So if you have a lot of algae or detritus, it will accumulate here fairly quickly. So you wanted something that's easy to take off. Because this wire, it's not just one single wire. You pull it out, you take these off, you clean them real quick, put them back in.
Bam.
Takes about 5 minutes, bam, the unit works perfectly. It doesn't make a whole lot of noise, and I took off 3 pumps and replaced it with one of these.
So you know what, how about we kind of, as a closing segment, we'll go down there after you kind of go over the last piece and we'll just kind of show it in action.
Yeah, we're gonna show how it works because I'm actually gonna put a dosing of amino acids. And when you see the ELOS amino acids move within the tank in seconds, and cover everything, you see how fast and how much water motion there is.
Good. Okay, we'll do that.
Now that's one of the cooler things. The other cool thing that was discussed is the Triton Labs, which is a completely new concept. Introduced in Germany by Esson, and he gave a speech at MACNA on it. Basically what it is a system that measures all of the trace elements and all the major elements in your tank using a fairly highly sophisticated technique that has its own algorithm associated with it. What you basically do is send him 2 tubes of your own water. You register online, get your number. He then will send you online a graph showing what all of your elements are and show what they are relative to what they are in normal seawater. So what his concept is that if you have all of these elements in balance, you don't need to be doing water changes. He's a strong advocate of using very strong protein skimming, using GFO and or carbon, and potentially having something like a Miracle Mud Refugium to extract some of the nitrates and phosphates. Those are the main things, but what his concern more is adding the necessary trace elements. Like one of the things he talked about was vanadium, which I know is crucial for growing tunicates and sponges. But what I didn't know was that zinc seems to be crucial for getting really rapid growth in SPS corals. So I've never measured my zinc level. That's one of the things. I'm sending these in next week. I left this here so we could videotape this. I'm sending this in next week because I sort of run counter to what he is talking about, in that if you have all of these things in balance, he doesn't think you need to do any water changes. What I have now been doing since June, when we did the last shoot of videos, is I'm now doing 25 gallons a week of water changes. So it'll be interesting to see how my tank, which to me is doing as well as it ever has, will compare with his concept of not doing any water changes. I mean, it's a starting point. To run the test is approximately $40. Triton LA is the company you send this to. You can find them online or on a lot of the different websites. Talk to Scott and he will send you this and get it all hooked up, because they batch send them. Whenever they have enough of these tests in LA, they send it out and you get your results back about a week later. So in that concept, it's relatively cheap. So if your dad has everything, I can guarantee you he hasn't had this kind of refined measurement of what his parameters are in his tank. What I want to do is look at my tank now and look at it 6 months from now, and see how the tank has done over that time. If it's still doing good, typically it's winter time, so my tank will do better because I'm spending more time. But I want to see how my results compare. If my numbers are the same and the tank is doing the same, obviously I'm doing something right. If my tank is doing worse and my numbers are the same, then I got to try to figure out what the heck's going on. If my
you know what's going to happen, right?
Yeah, I know that's what's going to happen. Then I'm going to question the significance of their measurements, but there may be a problem there. If my tank is doing better and certain things have changed, or if my tank is doing better and certain things have changed, then I can see, okay, this change and this change, I know that's what I need to do to optimize things. So it's going to be sort of a learning process. This isn't what for everyone. But I'm of the mindset that more information is always better than less information, and this is going to provide me with more information than I've ever been able to obtain before. So, and for hobbyists that don't like to do regular testing, and a lot of the tests aren't very, for lack of a better term, specific, or you can manipulate them just by whether you look at the top of the meniscus or the bottom of the meniscus for testing, whether your drop holder is straight or at slight angle, everything can change things slightly. This seems to be a good baseline from which to base everything else on.
Perfect.
So
I like
this
that.
is something new.
And you said $40?
$40.
Okay.
Approximately.
Okay.
They haven't published that, but that's what they were talking about at MACNA.
Okay.
And last but not least, when you live by yourself like I do, you can pretty much do whatever you want with your man cave. So in that context, my friend Chris Tounier owns Fisheye Fine Art, and he made these watercolors for me of a mystery wrasse and a flame angel. And these are the biggest sizes that he delivers. Obviously, these are pretty big, but he makes them much smaller. So if your father has a spot in his house and he has a love of a lot of different fish, because these aren't the only ones that Chris has pictures of or does photographs and a lot of other different renderings of, this is something to look at. So all you have to do is go to Fisheye Fine Art online. And when you contact Chris, tell him you're a friend of mine. He'll take great care of you. I've known Chris for 20 years. He's the guy that started Reefer Madness. Then he was at Sustainable Aquatics. So he's hardcore into this like we are. So these are something to really make the room. And since I did this, I then made the whole room sort of aquafied it. You go with a fish tank. There's no glass angelfish, bubbles, seashells, seahorses, all kind of stuff. So obviously it looks a little weird, but I kind of like it. So
okay, hold on. Back to the paintings for a second. Okay, do you send him a picture and he does?
No.
How does that work?
He has a lot of different fish.
So he already has, it's like a stock of certain
He has stock
photos.
of like a dozen different fish.
Okay.
And I gave him ideas for about a dozen more.
Yep.
So over the next course of the year, if this does well, you'll see more and more of these pictures. I mean, my next goal is to get 3 smaller ones to put on the other side of the wall.
Right.
So these were big, and this was really ugly pictures that were here forever since I moved into this house that I hated. I asked him about this. He made these for me. Everybody that's come in really likes these pictures. It really has brightened up the room.
Yeah,
it basically shows what my taste is. I mean, I like everything aquatic, so
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I live here. Pretty much nobody else does except Lucy, and she likes it just fine.
Okay, so price range. I know it's going to go across the board, but give me a rough range.
It goes from $36 to, I think, $263.
Okay, but there again, very
affordable.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
like your dad to her
instead of buying him a tie or a scarf, things that he pretty much has. All this stuff is just things that he may not even know about.
Right.
So, or for you're trying to have your wife get you something. This is all stuff that you will find useful. I mean, everything in here I use, so I'm pretty confident that it all works pretty well.
Speaking of which, what about those things?
These are coasters I got as a gift from one of the talks I gave. I don't know who makes them. Actually, it probably says on the back. No, actually, this was from Macna 15 I got.
Ah, there it is.
So I don't pay a whole lot of attention, obviously, to things. But these are pretty cool little fish coasters. These are tiles of some type. I've not seen these available anywhere, but they turn them into coasters. And if you have clownfish and seahorses, pretty much everybody's happy and everybody thinks those are pretty nice. Yeah. And because they sit up above the wood, you don't, and they don't allow water to flow through, you don't get those rings that you do with some of the coasters that you have. So these were just something I got from Macna 15, so which I didn't even realize. But these are actually pretty nice.
It's a great idea for a gift, for a gift.
Yeah. And I mean, if you could probably find these online, and you can make them for coasters for your dad or mom if you don't have a lot of money to spend. I'm sure these are not very expensive, but it's something else you can do.
Very good.
I'm not big on homemade gifts, but I'd like to get.
Yeah, that works. That's right. That's right. And especially like for me, I always put my stuff in my bedroom. Right, I have my stuff in my bedroom. My test kits, they're always wet, so that's perfect. Plop that beside it, and you're on races. So to that point, let's pause it. Let's go see that. Was it Gyre? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, the Gyre. Max Spec Gyre.
Max Spec Gyre.
As I said, I'm doing beta testing for the Max Spec Gyre, and everyone likes to show how much water motion, but usually what I've been seeing is they're fairly empty tanks. Needless to say, my tanks are never really empty. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to show, we actually showed this in an earlier video, how much the ELOS amino acids color up a tank. Well, this will show how much they disperse in the Gyre and how quickly. I mean, it's rather amazing when you look at the flow. Within seconds, you can see it blows all the way across the tank. It starts to come back on the bottom, which is exactly what you would hope to see. So it's pretty impressive doing that you can see the whole tank went yellow in at best 2 seconds. So that's the kind of flow we're getting from just one Gyre. And one of my goals this weekend is to add the second Gyre, and we'll show a video of that down the line, because then I'm going to take off the 3 pumps that are over here. I'm still going to leave the Tunzes on and the C-sweeps. So I'm still going to get some randomness from that going across the Gyres. And then down the line, when I get somebody here to help me, I'm going to put another Gyre in the back vertically, and it's going to shoot the water around the front. And I'm hoping that by doing all that, there will not be any dead spots within the tank for detritus. Because one of the things I'm finding now, when I do my 25-gallon a week water change, I'm taking all the detritus out of the tank, and I dried it one time because needless to say I have lots of free time, but I poured off all the water and put it all in one tray and let it dry out, and it was over 100 grams of detritus. So that's pretty much what I'm taking out of this tank every week, is 100 grams of detritus. So that's 100 grams of waste being removed, which is the one drawback I see to not doing water changes. I can see keeping everything balanced, keeping everything even, keeping everything stable, which we've discussed numerous times, but removing the detritus to me is as critical or possibly more critical than keeping everything stabilized. So this gives you an idea of all the stuff. This is the last thing for Christmas. So have a Merry Christmas, and I hope your dad gets everything he wants this year.